The desperate call. The silence of deep space was broken by a signal that would change everything. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Parks sat at her monitoring station aboard the Terran Deep Space Listening Post Omega-7, her coffee growing cold as she stared at the readings on her screen. In her 12 years of service, she had never seen anything like it. The signal was coming from a star system 300 light-years away, transmitted on frequencies that no human technology used. More disturbing was the fact that it was repeating. Every 37 minutes, exactly. The mathematical precision suggested intelligence, but the content remained a mystery. You need to see this," called Technician First Class David Kim from across the monitoring station. His young face was pale with excitement or fear. "I've been running the signal through our translation algorithms. The pattern is starting to make sense." Park walked over to Kim's station, her boots clicking against the metal floor of the listening post. The station orbited a dead planet in an empty system, far from Earth's busy shipping lanes. It was the perfect place to listen for signals from unknown civilizations, though they rarely heard anything more interesting than cosmic background radiation. "What do you have?" Park asked, leaning over Kim's shoulder to study the display. "The signal is definitely artificial," Kim explained, his fingers dancing over the controls. "But here's the strange part. It's using mathematical concepts that suggest the senders know about human technology. Look at these frequency modulations. They match patterns we use for emergency broadcasts." Park felt a chill run down her spine. The galaxy was full of alien species, but most of them avoided contact with humans. Earth's reputation as a death world had spread throughout known space. Other species saw humans as dangerous predators who had evolved on a planet that tried to kill everything living on it. "Can you clean up the signal?" she asked. Kim nodded and began adjusting the receivers. Slowly, the static cleared, and they heard something that made their blood run cold. It was a voice, speaking in accented but understandable English. "This is Ambassador Zaravel of the Kytherian Republic, broadcasting on all frequencies to any human vessels or stations that might receive this message. Our civilization is dying. We have exhausted all other options. We know that your species is feared throughout the galaxy for your aggressive nature, but we have studied your history. You have also shown compassion for those who cannot defend themselves." The voice paused and they could hear what sounded like explosions in the background. "The Void Swarm has come to our space. They are machines, ancient and terrible, that consume entire star systems. We have lost 17 worlds in the past 6 months. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Our shields cannot stop their advance. The Galactic Council has abandoned us, saying that the swarm cannot be stopped and we must accept our fate." Another pause, longer this time. When the voice returned, it was filled with desperate hope. "But we have heard stories of your kind. They say humans never surrender. They say you fight impossible battles and somehow win. They say you protect those who cannot protect themselves, even at great cost to yourselves. If any of this is true, please help us. We can offer you our friendship, our knowledge, our gratitude, but we cannot offer you much time. The swarm will reach our homeworld in 14 standard days." The message ended with coordinates to the Kytherian system, then began repeating from the beginning. Park and Kim stared at each other in stunned silence. First contact with an alien species was supposed to be handled by trained diplomats, not a listening post crew in the middle of nowhere. But there was no time for proper protocols. "Send this to Fleet Command immediately," Park ordered. "Priority Alpha 1. And get me Admiral Chen's office." Within hours, the message had reached the highest levels of the Terran Defense Force. "Admiral." Sarah Chen stood in the main briefing room at Lunar Command, watching the alien play on the wall display. Around the table sat the most senior officers in the fleet, their faces grim as they absorbed the implications. "How much do we know about these Kytherians?" Chen asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief xenobiologist. Dr. Vasquez consulted her tablet. "Very little, I'm afraid. They are part of the Galactic Council, but they've never had direct contact with humans. From what our traders have reported, they are a peaceful species that prefers diplomacy to conflict. They've been spacefaring for about 2,000 years, much longer than us. And this void swarm? Chen asked General Harrison Burke, as strategic advisor. Burke's weathered face was troubled. We've heard rumors from deep space traders. Ancient machines that appear every few thousand years to strip entire systems bare. Most species treat them as legends, but if they're real. He shook his head. The reports describe them as nearly indestructible. Captain Marcus Thompson, commander of the heavy cruiser TDF Defiance, leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, this could be a trap. We don't know anything about these aliens. They could be luring our fleet into an ambush. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Thompson was one of her best captains, and his caution had saved many lives over the years. But something about the alien's message troubled her. Dr. Vasquez, in your opinion, was that plea genuine? The xenobiologist hesitated before answering. The emotional patterns were consistent with genuine distress. The linguistic analysis suggests they learned English specifically to contact us, which would be an enormous effort for a deception. And Admiral, they are right about our reputation. Most alien species avoid us because they think we are dangerous. The fact that they are asking for our help suggests they are truly desperate. Chen walked to the large viewing window that looked out over Earth's moon. Lunar City sprawled across the surface below, its lights twinkling in the eternal night. Humanity had come so far since leaving their dangerous homeworld, but they had never forgotten the lessons Earth taught them. What do we know about their military capabilities? She asked. Limited, Burke replied. They prefer energy-based weapons and defensive technologies. Their ships are built for exploration and trade, not warfare. Against an enemy like this void swarm, they would be almost helpless. Chen turned back to face the room. And our capabilities? Commander Alex Rivera, leader of the elite Terran Marines, smiled grimly. We've been preparing for hostile first contact scenarios for decades. Our ships are built for combat, our weapons are designed to penetrate any known defense system, and our crews are trained for the impossible. The question, Thompson said quietly, is whether we should risk everything for aliens we've never met. Chen looked around the table at her officers. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity and its interests. They had families, responsibilities, entire worlds depending on their decisions. But Chen remembered why she had joined the Defense Force in the first place. 50 years ago, she said slowly, when the Centauri colonies were threatened by that solar flare, did we ask what they could offer us in return for help? No, Rivera replied. We sent every available ship. When the mining platform at Vega was crippled by equipment failure, did we calculate the cost before launching a rescue mission? No. Chen nodded. We helped because it was the right thing to do. Because when someone is drowning, you don't ask them what they can pay you before throwing them a rope. Dr. Vasquez spoke up quietly. Admiral, there's something else to consider. If this void swarm is real, and if it's as destructive as described, it won't stop with the Kytherians. Eventually, it will threaten human space. Better to fight it now, with allies, than later alone, Burke added, his strategic mind already working through the implications. Chen made her decision. We are going. I want the Third Fleet prepared for immediate departure. Full battle configuration. Admiral, Thompson said carefully, the Third Fleet is our most advanced battle group. If we lose it, then we lose it fighting for something that matters, Chen replied firmly. Marcus, I want you to command the fleet's tactical operations. Alex, prepare your Marines for possible ground operations. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to establish communication protocols with the Kytherians. As her officers dispersed to carry out their orders, Chen remained at the viewing window. She thought about the alien voice on the recording, filled with desperate hope despite facing annihilation. In that voice, she heard something familiar. It was the same tone she had heard in human voices during Earth's darkest hours, when early colonists faced impossible odds on hostile worlds. The Kytherians might be aliens, but they understood something fundamental about humanity. Humans didn't abandon people who needed help. It was a trait that had been bred into them by millennia of surviving on a world that demanded cooperation or death. Within 6 hours, the Third Fleet was assembled at the lunar staging area. 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and the Massive battle carrier TDF Indomitable formed up in perfect formation. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the most powerful force humanity had ever assembled for a single mission. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, who had been transferred from the listening post to serve as Chen's communications officer. Dr. Vasquez, are you ready to make first contact? Chen asked. The xenobiologist nodded, though she looked nervous. As ready as anyone can be for something that's never been done before. Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we embark on a mission unlike any in human history. We go to aid an alien species that has asked for our help against an enemy that threatens to destroy their entire civilization. Some of you may wonder, why we risk so much for strangers? The answer is simple, because it's who we are. She paused, looking out at the ships that carried the hopes of humanity into the unknown. Earth made us strong by being harsh. It taught us that survival requires looking out for each other, that sometimes you have to fight impossible odds, and that the only way to truly lose is to give up. Today, we carry those lessons to the stars. We go not as conquerors, but as defenders. Not as strangers, but as friends to those who need our help. The fleet engaged their hyperspace drives simultaneously, and in a flash of brilliant light, they vanished into the void. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children were racing toward the most important battle in human history. Admiral Chen settled into her command chair as the stars blurred past the viewing screen. In 13 days, they would reach the Kytherian system. In 13 days, they would discover whether the reputation of Earth's Deathworld warriors was deserved. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened someone under human protection. Deathworld warriors unite. The Terran Third Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kytherian system, and Admiral Chen immediately understood why the aliens had sounded so desperate. The scanner readings painted a picture of systematic destruction that chilled her to the bone. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, her voice tight with shock, I'm reading debris fields where 3 planets should be. The inner system looks like a graveyard. Captain Thompson's image appeared on the main communication screen from the bridge of the Defiance. Sensors are picking up massive energy signatures moving through the asteroid belt. Whatever did this is still here. Dr. Vasquez was studying the xenobiology readings with growing alarm. Admiral, there are no life signs from any of the destroyed worlds. Not even bacteria. Whatever this void swarm is, it doesn't just destroy civilizations. It sterilizes entire planets. Chen felt a familiar coldness settle in her stomach. She had seen warfare before, but this was different. This was extinction made systematic and efficient. Take us toward the 4th planet, she ordered. That's where the Kytherian homeworld should be. As they approached, the fleet encountered their first Kytherian vessel. It was unlike any human ship, built with flowing curves and crystalline surfaces that caught and reflected starlight. But it was clearly damaged, with scorch marks along its hull and several sections venting atmosphere. Admiral, Park announced, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel. The main screen flickered, and a figure appeared that made several crew members gasp. The Kytherian was humanoid but clearly alien, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with internal light and large, multifaceted eyes that reflected intelligence and desperate hope. Human vessels, the alien spoke in careful English, I am Navigator Velcran of the research ship Harmony's Edge. We have been monitoring your approach for the past hour. We did not truly believe you would come. Admiral Chen stepped forward. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We received your plea for help. What's the current situation? Velcran's expression was difficult to read, but relief was evident in the alien's voice. The swarm reached our homeworld 2 days ago. Most of our population has evacuated to the underground cities, but our defenses are failing. The machines are unlike anything we have ever encountered. They adapt to our weapons, they overwhelm our shields, and they show no interest in communication or mercy. How many swarm units are we facing? Asked General Kyokafor, who had joined the bridge crew for the critical phase of the mission. Our sensors detect approximately 50,000 individual units of various sizes, Velcran replied. They range from small fighters to massive harvester ships the size of your largest vessels. All are controlled by 3 command nodes that appear to be the size of small moons. Captain Thompson whistled softly. Admiral, we're outnumbered nearly 1,000 to 1. Chen nodded grimly. She had expected long odds, but these numbers were staggering. However, humans had won impossible battles before. Velcran, we need to see these machines for ourselves. Can you guide us to a safe observation point? The Kytherian ship changed course, leading the human fleet toward the embattled homeworld. As they approached, Chen got her first look at the enemy that had terrorized an entire civilization. The Void Swarm units were mechanical nightmares that seemed to blend organic and artificial design. They moved through space with the coordination of a school of fish, but their purpose was clearly destructive. The smaller units were stripping away the outer layers of the planet's atmosphere while larger vessels methodically dismantled orbital installations. Look at how they move, observed Commander Rivera, studying the tactical displays. Perfect coordination, no wasted motion. They are like a single organism with a million bodies. Dr. Vasquez was analyzing the energy readings from the swarm units. Admiral, these machines are powered by some form of zero-point energy extraction. They are literally feeding off the quantum vacuum. That's how they can operate indefinitely, without refueling. Chen studied the enemy formations with the eyes of a veteran tactician. General Okafor, what's your assessment? The tactical genius rubbed his chin thoughtfully. They are efficient, but they are also predictable. Look at their movement patterns. They follow standard optimization algorithms. Each unit takes the path of least resistance to accomplish its assigned task. Which means? Chen asked. Which means? They've never faced an enemy that deliberately chooses the path of most resistance, Okafor replied with a slight smile. Admiral, I think it's time to introduce them to human military doctrine. Chen activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We are facing an enemy that has destroyed dozens of civilizations by being more efficient than them. They are about to learn that humans don't win by being efficient. We win by being too stubborn to quit and too crazy to care about impossible odds. Lieutenant Sophie Blake, the fleet's top fighter pilot, spoke up from her position aboard the carrier Indomitable. Admiral, request permission to launch reconnaissance flights. I'd like to get a closer look at these things. Granted, but stay out of weapons range. We need intelligence before we commit to battle. Blake launched with a squadron of the fleet's most advanced fighters, small craft designed for speed and stealth. As they approached the swarm perimeter, the enemy units reacted exactly as their analysis had predicted. The machines moved to intercept along the most mathematically efficient vectors. This is Falcon Leader, Blake reported over the radio. The swarm is predictable, but they are fast. I'm seeing response times under 2 seconds. And Admiral, these things are built tough. The smaller units look like they could shrug off a direct hit from our standard weapons. Engineer Tommy Walsh had been studying the scanner data from the reconnaissance flight. Admiral, I'm seeing something interesting in the enemy formations. They're using quantum entanglement for instant communication between units. That's how they coordinate so perfectly. Asterisk. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with excitement. Tommy, if they're using quantum entanglement, they might be vulnerable to quantum interference. We could disrupt their coordination. Chen felt the familiar stirring of hope that came with finding a weakness in an impossible enemy. What would we need? We'd have to modify our weapons to generate quantum static, Walsh explained. It's possible, but it would take time we don't have. Velcran, who had been listening to the human discussions with growing amazement, spoke up. Admiral Chen, our ships carry quantum resonance generators for scientific research. If your engineer could modify them, we might be able to create the interference you need. Chen looked around the bridge at her officers. Thompson was already running tactical calculations, Rivera was planning boarding actions, and Dr. Vasquez was working on communication protocols with the Kytherians. These were people who had trained their entire lives for the impossible. All right, here's what we are going to do, Chen announced. We are going to combine human military tactics with Kytherian technology to give this swarm something they've never faced before, an enemy that fights dirty. The next few hours were a frantic period of preparation and coordination. Human engineers worked alongside Kytherian scientists to modify weapons and defense systems. Marines trained with alien volunteers who knew the terrain of their homeworld. Pilots studied enemy movement patterns while tacticians planned a battle unlike any in human history. The breakthrough came when Tommy Walsh figured out how to weaponize the Kytherian quantum generators. "Admiral, we can't just disrupt their communications. We can actually turn their coordination system against them. If we pulse the quantum field at the right frequency, we can make their units target each other instead of us." General Okafor grinned. Like a predator. Classic human strategy. When you can't beat them, make them beat themselves. The battle began at dawn over the Kytherian homeworld. The Terran fleet deployed in formations that would have been suicide against any rational enemy, but the Void Swarm wasn't rational. It was efficient. The swarm units moved to counter the human attack exactly as predicted, flowing into perfect intercept positions. That's when Admiral Chen gave the order that would change galactic history. "All ships, execute Chaos Protocol. Show them what Deathworlders can do." The human fleet suddenly abandoned all tactical doctrine. Ships broke formation and began random attack runs. Fighters engaged in aerobatic maneuvers that served no strategic purpose except to confuse enemy targeting systems. The carefully modified Kytherian quantum generators pulsed across the battlefield, filling space with interference patterns that turned the swarm's perfect coordination into catastrophic confusion. For the first time in millennia, Void Swarm units began firing on each other. Their optimization algorithms couldn't adapt fast enough to counter tactics that made no mathematical sense. Lieutenant Blake dove her fighter through a formation of enemy vessels, her weapons blazing. "Falcon leader to all units, they are starting to adapt. We need to keep changing our patterns." Commander Rivera led a boarding action against one of the command nodes, his Marines using combat techniques that had been developed in Earth's most dangerous environments. They fought through corridor after corridor of mechanical defenders, adapting to each new threat with the flexibility that had kept humanity alive on their hostile homeworld. The battle raged for hours, with both sides taking heavy casualties. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The Void Swarm's perfect efficiency became a liability when faced with enemies who thrived on chaos and improvisation. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge as the third command node finally fell to combined human Kytherian fire. Across the battlefield, thousands of swarm units suddenly stopped moving as their controlling intelligence was severed. "Admiral," Park reported with exhaustion and amazement in her voice, "all enemy units have ceased hostile activity. The swarm appears to be dormant." Chen slumped in her command chair, feeling the weight of the impossible victory. Around the bridge, her crew was cheering, but she was already thinking about the implications. Velcran's image appeared on the communication screen, the alien's face showing an emotion that needed no translation, gratitude beyond words. "Admiral Chen," the Kytherian said, "our people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have given us back our future." Chen managed a tired smile. "You don't owe us anything, Velcran. This is what friends do for each other." As the human fleet began rescue operations and the Kytherians emerged from their underground shelters, word of the victory spread throughout the galaxy. The species that had been feared as dangerous Deathworlders had risked everything to save strangers from extinction. The Void Swarm threat was ended, but something more important had begun. For the first time in galactic history, humans were seen not as predators, but as protectors. The alliance forged in battle between Earth and the Kytherian Republic would grow to include dozens of species, all united by the understanding that some fights are worth having, regardless of the odds. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching as human and Kytherian ships worked together to rebuild what the swarm had destroyed. Dr. Vasquez joined her, holding a data pad filled with reports from the battle. "The preliminary analysis is fascinating," Vasquez said. The swarm had never encountered an enemy that prioritized survival over efficiency. Their programming literally couldn't account for tactics that accepted higher losses in exchange for unpredictability. Chen nodded. "Earth taught us that sometimes you have to take the hard path to get where you need to go. I guess that's not a lesson you learn on peaceful worlds." Admiral Vasquez said quietly, "What we did here today is going to change everything. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way." Chen smiled as she watched a group of human Marines teaching Kytherian children how to play zero-gravity soccer. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that being dangerous and being good aren't mutually exclusive. The stars seemed brighter as the combined fleet prepared for the journey home, carrying news of a victory that would echo through history. Earth's children had gone to the stars not as conquerors, but as defenders, and the galaxy was better for it.